Hi, everyone. Welcome to Richmond Chamber of Podcast. We have a guest here, Stephen. Stephen, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great, James. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, we had an opportunity to meet and had an amazing conversation, by the way. Some things that I wrestle with all the time. So tell us a little bit about what you do, what kind of business you're in, and what do you provide for our community?
Yeah, sure thing. Well, my name is Stephen Khuong. I'm an ex-CEO and founder of a software company that I exited, spent 8 years of my life building it, exited it recently. And currently I'm in the process of bringing everything that I've learned from the high-tech world and disseminating that information to help small, medium-sized businesses to accelerate their growth and their sales. And also to provide some coaching to the founders of those businesses, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a chamber, I run into a lot of particularly small business owners, two types of people. One, who are so passionate about their business, started their own business, and those who kind of inherited the business out of necessity to pay rent. And what I've found is that often a lot of them get stuck.
Yep. Common theme.
Financially, their businesses was growing at one point,
Right.
and it just kind of stuck. And
Right.
so they don't enjoy it as much,
Right.
and it become a job.
Sure.
And so, for someone like that who's gone through that period in their business where they're very passionate about it, now they feel stuck. What are some of the things that if they were to hire you, that you can bring into that conversation?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the first thing that we have to do is backtrack a little bit, right? Because oftentimes when we go into business, we are overwhelmed with a couple of milestones, making a lot of money and then spending that money.
Yeah.
Right? But if we backtrack a little bit, you want to ask any person, what are the three things that are fundamental to happiness? And these are, I call the three Ps, right? Having peace, having some prosperity, and having purpose. So I would then go back to that entrepreneur and ask him or her, what would bring you the three Ps? What would bring you your peace, your prosperity, and your purpose? For some people, it may be like, hey, Stephen, get me the heck out of this business. I inherited it from my grandfather. Like, I don't want to be in this.
Right.
Or someone may say, you know what? I've been grinding it through for the past 5 years. I really believe in this product. I really believe in my service, but I just can't break the $1 million mark. How do I do that? So fortunately for me, I've had the benefit to work with hundreds of entrepreneurs, from CEOs of $100 million companies all the way down to entrepreneurs that founded a startup with no revenue. I do advising for a number of universities. I do consulting and CEO coaching. So I've seen the gambit of it all. And there's always one thing that sits at the denominator, which is like, how do you define your own happiness? Because if money is the question, if the money is really the answer, there's a lot of ways you can do that pretty fast. You can go to Vegas and gamble.
When you mentioned the three Ps, it really got me thinking. I think in most of our lives, the P looks like a pyramid.
That's right.
Our prosperity is number one.
That's right.
And then you have the peace and the purpose here.
Yes.
And then you find yourself really struggling because maybe you're making the money, but you're not finding peace.
That's right.
And some people, it's purpose. They've been striving to get this purpose of getting this businesses built, but they're not finding peace.
That's
they're
right.
not finding happiness in what they do.
That's
So
right.
it's linear.
It's linear, yeah.
So some people they're lacking that peace.
That's right.
And
That's right.
some people love what they do, but they're not making money.
That's right.
And so you come in and you try to find balance in those.
That's right. And I might have to steal that analogy from you, by the way. The three Ps, they're symbiotic. They're an organic relationship.
Yeah.
In my experience, and I've been in business for 30 years, I bootstrapped 5 companies, had some pretty good experiences and some harsh battle scars that I can share as well. They're symbiotic in the extent that if you have 2 out of the 3, you're constantly searching for the third one.
Yeah.
And in that search, you may be derailing your strategies for your business. Right? You know that.
Yeah. And it's like Maxwell talks about this the theory of the lid.
Yes.
And as a leader, and what I've learned personally, and when people ask me, if I'm successful in a certain way, how did you get there? And the answer is never alone.
No, you don't do it alone.
The answer is like, oh yeah, I got there by myself. I worked hard. I strive for perfection. No, I don't know anyone who got to the top alone. And so for me, it's
Never.
the same as the theory of the lid. we all have a lid.
Yes.
You know, my potential capacity, I've hit that lid. I
Right.
hit that ceiling.
Right.
I need somebody else to come and get me to the next level. So
That's right.
would you be that person for businesses and, you know, leaders?
I would hope so. That's currently my purpose. You know, I've experienced some prosperity. I fight to find peace every day. And now I'm looking at my North Star and I'm really trying to understand what my purpose is. Because you have to understand my background story as well. I came to this country as an immigrant refugee at 3.5 years old. No money, on welfare. You know, grew up in Oakland most of my life. So there was a particular trajectory for someone like myself.
Sure.
Right? But I was able to get a lot of help from my parents, from people that I looked up to, and then also I had the benefit of experiencing a lot of failure very early on. I started my first business when I was 12 years old. Had a mobile DJ company, started a production company. At one point, I was the tour DJ for the Loonies. Remember that song? I Got Five on it. Yeah, so I go way back.
Okay.
So
do you still do it?
I still do a little bit. I still got my skills. Yeah, you can pull up my YouTube channel. Yeah, but my point is that I've had the benefit of exploring and failing really, really fast.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, they might not get those failure opportunities, which is what I call like green lights, until later on in their lives. And then by that time, they have other constraints, children, relationships, marriage. All these things, they compound. And all of these things constantly pull you in different directions from the 3 Ps being symbiotic.
Right.
You get my point?
Yeah. And you know, the balance, right?
It's the balance.
If you don't have that balance and you're lopsided, you know, my dad used to always teach me that you know, every business needs a leg.
Yes,
you know?
right.
And in the same way, it's like a wheel. If you don't have that balance, you're gonna get flat tired. You're
That's
gonna
right.
get worn out. And so I see a lot of business owners who get drained
That's
in what
right.
they do. And so if you were to come in and coach me,
Sure.
right? So even as the CEO for the chamber, I
Yep.
hire you to coach me,
Right.
to get me out of this flat tired, get me out of this place. Like,
Sure.
what are some of the things that you can help me?
So the first thing that I would want to know is like, James, in this particular stage of your life, I want to know all the things that has nothing to do with the chamber. Tell me about your personal life.
Okay.
Right.
Now you're getting personal.
Now I'm getting personal
Okay.
because we make the mistake of business owners of removing the personal from the business.
Okay.
You tell me one person who doesn't go home at night and have to speak to, well, if you're living alone, you know, out in the woods by yourself, you have the pleasure of doing that. But most of us, we have a relationship to somebody,
Right.
either to our spouse,
Right.
to our significant other, to our children, to our parents who are aging.
Right.
We have some sort of relationship. Those things impact the way you think, your motivation, your inspiration, your desperation, your depression. It impacts all of those things. And then you bring it to work,
Right.
either subconsciously or consciously. And then you start to talk to your employees differently,
Right.
depending on the previous night.
Right.
So that's the first thing I go like, James, well, how's family looking like? You know, how are the kids doing? And you may tell me, you know, Stephen, everybody's doing great. You know, this has been the best year of my life of all these things that I wanted to accomplish, you know, 30 years before. I've done it. Then I'm going to say, great, James, your starting line is here. But if you told me, hey, Stephen, you know what, to be really honest with you, my personal life is not something that I really like to talk about. I've had some hard times. I went through this, there, and that. Then your starting line is here. We have to understand where you are starting from in the present moment.
Right.
And people forget that.
Right. You can't get to the future unless you know where you're at, right? So you kind of have to get personal in their life.
I have to.
So
That's the most effective.
You're not just a business coach; you're a personal coach in that process of getting in. You know, one of my favorite TVs to watch is I don't even know the name, but it's that guy Restaurant something. He comes and goes into a failed restaurant.
Oh.
What is that TV show? And I love watching it because what he does is he transforms that restaurant.
That's right.
But you know what he does first? He does exactly what you do. What's stopping you from making it? Or
That's
what's
right.
stopping you? What's the barrier? And first, it's personal, right? So you come in and say, okay, James, what's going on in your life? And so what would be the next step?
The next step would be, what do you want to do? And you have to be honest. Everybody's going to want to say, I want to make a lot of money. But sometimes you actually don't really want to make a lot of money.
Really?
So I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example. There are CEOs that I've coached at a startup where they've gotten themselves into a startup 4 years ago, and their dream was to have a unicorn exit, $1 billion company, IPO, right? But after 4 years, they've realized that none of those things matter because they're not happy. And the only thing that they want right now is to make sure that their investors are made whole and he or she gets out of it cleanly. Nothing to do with making a lot of money.
Right.
It is to survive the present moment that's making them unhappy.
Right, right.
Those two things are explicitly diverging, right? So that's one example.
Right, right.
So I would ask, like, what do you want? And for, like you said, most people will say to make a lot of money. Sure, we'll throw that into the mix. But behind that, what do you want? So you may say, like, you know what? I really want to make an impact on the community. That's why I took this job as CEO of the Chambers. Then I'll say, well, James, you got to be more explicit. What is the impact? Negative impact? Positive impact? Right? Because again, as entrepreneurs, most of us have so many thoughts and ideas and patterns coming at us all the time. And, you know, we've become very good at facilitating all of these thoughts and ideas. But what we've also become not so good at is fine-tuning one or two things that are low-hanging fruits that we can execute on.
Right. And that's important. You know, a lot of times we forget the low-hanging fruits when we're trying to achieve the top goal.
That's right.
And so you know, obviously we can't cookie cut every business into this mold, but what are some of the things that, as a business owner, that low-hanging fruit that I can grab onto?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a firm believer that all of the secrets of the trade, the marketing, the growth strategies that high-tech companies have used for the past 20 years, those same strategies can be adopted at the small and medium business level. I'll give you one example. On a day-to-day basis, your business has interaction with your customers. If you're a retail storefront, you're doing point of sale purchasing. If you are a service provider, say an auto mechanic, you know how many cars, what makes, what years, what models, what tires you're changing. All of that is data. And if you look at the high-tech world, you look at a Facebook, Meta, Apple, Google, what is their most valuable line of business? Data. Right? So how do we apply that to the SMBs? Well, I would come in and say, James, why don't we look at the Chamber's transactional data with membership for the past 5 years? Let's look at who we're attracting, who we're talking to. Well, let's develop firmographic profiles, buyer personas. Let's really understand what we have in the table. And now let's redirect your question based on the data that I have. Are my goals still the same? It may, but it may not be. You may say, oh my God, Stephen, based on the data, it looks like we should be pivoting to a totally different strategy, right? So every single business can take advantage of that, but most businesses don't even understand that they have this valuable data in their hands already.
I mean, data is the king, right? So,
It's the king.
you know, as Tesla, their data is how many cars are out there. They're constantly collecting data.
That's
Google
right.
is constantly collecting data because understanding your customer brings profit. Right?
That's right.
And so SMB, they don't really think about data. All
I don't
they
think so.
about is a transaction.
That day.
Right. Transaction. You
Transaction.
know, what did I do? So
That's right.
So coming in and say, okay, let's open up your books. Let's look at your customer base. What is the data? And they'll tell you, we have no data. But
Right.
you have a bunch of data that
Oh,
you're
they do.
collecting.
Oh, they do.
Right.
Yeah, their perception is that they don't because they haven't been collecting it. But there are forensic files that we can go into to retrieve that data. So if you're a retailer, you're likely using one of maybe 5 major POSs. You're maybe using Clover, you're using Toast,
Right.
you know, you're using something else.
Right.
You can get all of that data from their platform because they're collecting it. Right? That's one example. Another one is let's look at your email marketing list. Like I think these days most small medium business may have an email list, right? And then from there we can say, well, how did you collect those emails? Do you have a social media profile? Oh, do you have a website? Fine, let's look at your website traffic. We can use Google Analytics and other tools like SEMrush to then go back to find out where these people are searching for the keywords for your particular retail business and where they're coming from. There's a lot of data.
Right.
They just don't know how to get it.
Yeah, and you know, like the bigger Fortune 500 companies, they have a department that does data.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, where small businesses
Right.
and medium-sized businesses, they don't have that department.
Right.
You know, and so we get so caught up in day-to-day operation
Right.
that we forget the most important part. So you would come in and say, okay, let's look at your data. Let's
Yep.
see what, you know, for example, retail, you're spending this much time grocery shopping for this one where you're only making not even 1%. Take
That's
them
right.
off the menu.
That's right.
You know, and so let's fine tune your menu.
That's right.
You know, so you will come in and look at their data and then give them advices. And so how often would you meet with your clients?
Well, it depends on the engagement. I really have 3 service lines right now. The coaching service line is based on one-on-one coaching with the business owner, entrepreneur, CEO. And that could go anywhere from once a month to 4 times a month. And I usually start with a 3-month engagement because we need a quarter worth of impact to see some results, right? The second data line is what I call a full go-to-market analysis and full go-to-market execution, which is all of that. The first 3 to 4 weeks, I'm meeting with you every week, and I'm literally auditing you, pulling files. James, do you have this? You don't have it? Fine. Where else can I get it? What about from your accountant? What about who have you worked with? All of your vendors, pulling everything together and really understanding if we have enough to work with. Most of the time we do, most of the time. And only in very, very few instances where we don't. And if that's the case, that's not a problem. Then we can build a new thesis and start from scratch. Okay, so that's number 2. Again, usually a 3-month engagement. And then the third product line is for some medium businesses that actually have a good awareness of these strategies already. And they say, hey, Steven, you know, we're really weak on one area. We spend $5,000 a month on social media, and we can't tell how much money we're getting back.
Yeah.
So we can just focus on those one area as well.
Okay. So I mean, we can probably sit here and talk all day about, you know, strategies and business, and it. I mean, I love the fact that you realize that under every business, there's a person.
That's right.
You know, and we as an entrepreneur sometimes get buried in our business that we lose ourselves.
That's right.
And so I love the fact that you're bringing that person out, you know, and really finding themselves and the purpose of why they're doing what they're doing.
Right.
And are they finding, you know, peace in what they're doing, you know? And so I love that. I'm going to use that too as well.
Thank you so much.
And so how can people find you? Tell us how they can get in touch with you.
A couple of ways. My Instagram account is a pretty easy way to find me. Is it Steven, STEVEN _ Khuong, KHUONG. My website's the same thing, StevenKhuong.com. If you like LinkedIn, I'm there as well, Steven _ Khuong.
You know, I love the fact that you live in Richmond as well too.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm local, man.
Well, thank you, and thank everyone for listening in, and please go to his website. I mean, in that 15 minutes of a conversation, I've learned a lot about strategies and what's important. So please like and subscribe, and we'll see everyone next time.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
All right, thank you.